Hello everyone and welcome to the New York Empoleon's new draft league, the PCL Season 2. Now we are going to be taking on this 16-team Ubers league, similar to the ICBA in terms of that. But right now we are going to be talking about our draft analysis. Now it's pretty funny, I wasn't able to make the draft stream, but I did end up getting a chance to watch it. And especially the way they talked about my picks, I was curious what they were going to say about them. And one of the things Austin, who is running the league, shout out to Garchomp the God, who is, of course, the owner of the PCL, said, was that he was like, he's not going to take an Uber. He never takes an Uber. And I was actually going to take an Uber if I wasn't the 13th out of 16 picks. And the first 9 took Ubers. Now, this league did not have that many choices in terms of Ubers. They had really good ones in terms of Dialga, Aegislash, stuff like that. Reshiram was available. So, like, they had really good Ubers picks, but they didn't actually have that many of them, and so I wasn't sure if any of them were really going to make it down to me, and the ones I was looking at certainly didn't. That being mostly Aegislash, I was really curious to try it. Now, another thing Austin talked about was that I like to take new mons that I've never used before. Something that I think people forget when they think about me is that it's like, oh, he's a good battler, he knows what he's doing, he takes mons he's never used before. Well, that's not very hard, considering this is only like the 7th league I've ever been in. You know, I did my league to the TBL. The first one I really don't even count first season because I dropped it after 3 weeks. Picked it up in Season 2. So I've done Season 2, 3 of that. And then the UBLN Season 3, the GBA D-League Season 4, the IBL Season 5, ICBA Season 4, and now we have the PCL Season 2. That's it. That's all my leagues. That's the history of the New York Empoleon right there. That's all the leagues I've ever done. So this is only my 7th, technically 8th draft I've ever done, so picking new mons isn't that hard, but picking old ones would seem really boring to me. So this is going to be an interesting team. There's a lot of Pokemon on this draft that I'm admittedly not as comfortable with, but I'm pretty excited to see how it goes down and what's going to shake out when the battles start to go. I'm actually really excited to use this draft. I've been prepping for my Week 1 match, and just like very fun team. I'm really excited for it. So let's jump into it. Let's not waste any more of your time. Just a reminder, all of the coaches' links are in the description below, so go check them out when you have time, see their draft analysis. And without further ado, let's jump in. So again, like I said, I was the 13th overall pick in the draft. As the New York Empoleon, we never pick before 8th. That is a part of the, the commandments of the New York Empoleon. Commandment number 1, never pick above 8th. Commandment number 2, try to draft as many new Pokemon as possible. So that's what I was trying to do. I didn't want to use anything I was using in the ICBA or IBL. I failed to do that, but you'll see why a little bit later on. But we start off with the 13th pick, and it was my goal, my hope was to get, and I knew it was never going to happen, but I was like, if I can get Coco at 13th, because it's an Ubers League, I'd be thrilled. I really want Aegislash. If that's still available, I'm going to take it. But if not, I'm going to try to take Coco because I think it'll be really interesting. And Matt actually took Coco as the 10th pick. I got that far down. That was the first pick that was not an Uber, was straight up Coco. So I said, okay, let me take Zapdos or another really good electric type from Tier 1. I don't really generally draft Tier 1 electric types. And my front office screamed at me to not take Zapdos. They hate Zapdos. They were like, no Zapdos, I'll never front office for you if you take Zapdos. I was like, alright, fine. Let's grab Thundurus T, which is actually a really good fast electric type, and it gives a little bit more offensive pressure than Zapdos in terms of the electric stab. Gives me access to Volt Switch, gives me access to something off the ground, which is really nice, but it doesn't really get any good flying stab, which I'm not thrilled about, and as a round 1 pick, it was a questionable choice. I do think Zapdos is a better round 1 pick overall, and it was still available. But at the same time, my front office said, don't do that. I said, okay, let's try Thundy T. It's really hard hitting, really fast, good special attacker, good move pool all around. And you guys know how much I like using things that have varieties of sets. And this thing is the epitome of slap on a team and fit the role it needs to play, as long as you don't look for Hurricane or Air Slash, because it doesn't get them for some reason. Otherwise, though, its move pool is absolutely fantastic, and it's actually a really, really solid wall breaker and sweeper if the situation arises with good nasty plot. Volt Absorb is an amazing ability, so I figured with some of the stuff I wanted to draft later, that would be something to have in my back pocket. Now, it comes back to me pretty quick, because at 13th, it's 14, 15, 16, 16, 15, 14, then it's me again. Not a lot of picks in between. And at this point, I said I've drafted regular Gardevoir a number of times. I love it, but I've never actually drafted Mega Gardevoir. And I didn't know if it would make it back to me, so I decided, let's go with it. Let's take Mega Gardevoir, and let's see what happens. I think, personally, I do like regular Gardevoir better. But with Thundurus T and Mega Gardevoir being absolutely monstrous wall breakers that can just come in and be able to handle whatever it is they need to handle, and you know, right now I do need something for steel types, which is something that's going to wall both of these pretty well, but otherwise, that's a really fun core to use. Electric, Psychic, and Fairy type stabs are absolutely out of this world. Hyper Voice is the most spammable move in the game from Mega Gardevoir, arguably. I mean, it's debatable with Thousand Arrows from Zygarde, which of course Zygarde 100% is legal in this league, so we'll have to see how that goes, but Mega Gardevoir is a pretty decent check to Zygarde, as long as he's not going to be going for Iron Tail or something like that. If I can get a sub up, this thing's going to wall things for days. Sub Calm Mind is an amazing set. It does get Wish, it gets Heal Bell, it gets access to Destiny Bond with base 100 speed, which is amazing. Really crazy coverage moves from Energy Ball to Shadow Ball to, you know, both of its stabs obviously being fantastic, to Thunderbolt, to whatever I need it to do, it can fill that role. I'm really comfortable with regular Gardevoir, but Mega Gardevoir seems like an absolutely phenomenal mon for me to get the opportunity to use. And I figured, why not? Let's go in with this offensive strategy. It's not going to be a hyper-offensive team, but I do have some really fun wall breakers and really good momentum to allow Mega Gardevoir to come in safely, trace whatever ability before it Mega Evolves. It is required first turn Mega, and then proceed to go from there. So this thing is an absolutely fantastic mon, and I'm really excited to use it during the course of this season. But I do think I picked it a little bit early, and I said, okay, this league, okay, I didn't really talk about it as much at the beginning. I meant to, but this league has a very bizarre point system where the S tier mons are actually like only 160 points, and that bumped the tier 1 mons down to 120 points and tier 2 mons down to 100 points. You also, like GBA style, get 4 free picks, so those have to total up to 400 total points. For the regular tiers, it obviously doesn't matter. Mega Gardevoir being a tier 1 Mega means that I don't actually get any extra points, but I have 400 points to spend, and without even really bundling up on tier 5s, I can take 3 tier 1s pretty easily without an S tier, and I was not looking at any more S tiers once Aegislash got taken off the board. And so I was sitting there being like, you know what, why not go in with some mons I don't usually get to use because I don't usually get as much tier 1 variety, and so I decided to draft Infernape as my steel type check, my fire type to be able to come in on some threats. This team looking some speedy kind of way, but U-turn, stealth rocks, priority stab and Mach Punch or Vacuum Wave, base 104 in both of its attack and special attacks, so it can be run either way or mixed. Gunk Shot for coverage for fairy types, Flare Blitz, close combat. This thing gets Thunder Punch. It gets so much. Iron Fist is an amazing ability. I think Infernape can really fit my playstyle and really fit the way that I want to run this team. And later on, you'll see that I did decide to make Infernape one of my Z users because its coverage is out of this world and it's a pretty incredible Z user in its own right, and it gives it the ability to get those kills that it otherwise might miss out on, or bring things down to chunk them so that Mach Punch or Vacuum Wave can finish them off from there. Absolutely fantastic mon, and of course, let's not forget how much my playstyle revolves around momentum and U-turn being an amazing ability for this thing to have. A fire type not weak to rocks is absolutely incredible since I already had Thundurus T weak to rocks, and I thought that this would be a really good way to fill out that particular core. But I also decided, or I was thinking about it with my front office, and I was saying, you know what, I don't love Infernape being my only steel type answer. Obviously it's a great one with both of its stabs being super effective against steel types, so steel types like Heatran don't wall me because I also have the fighting stab, and on the flip side, steel types like Aegislash don't wall me because I have the fire stab. So this thing, amazing steel type breaker to allow for Mega Gardevoir to really come in and do the work it needs to do. But it's not the only thing I want to handle steel types to allow Mega Gardevoir to have the ability to function the way it needs to function. And so I decided with my next pick, I was going to pick up Diggersby. I have lost to this thing so many times. Quick attack from huge power Diggersby is immensely powerful. Return is so spammable from this thing. It gets stab, earthquake, so give me that ground type, give me another electric immunity. Not that I have an electric weakness right now, but absolutely great to have just a secondary electric immunity, plus a ghost immunity, which is really nice with the normal typing. Yes, it's a fighting weakness, but it's my only one so far, so I can actually pick that up without worrying about it too much. It's my, it paired with my Infernape are both weak to water, but you'll see that I try to patch that up with my next few picks. So I do have a core starting to form here, and it is a very offensive core. Very, very different from my usual playstyle of balanced, almost defensive, but balanced offensive style. This is going to be something that is going to hit like a truck, and I figured with my first few picks, I'm going to pick those mons up, make sure that I have them for later. I can grab the bulk from the lower tiers. It's not that much worse if you're looking into tier 3 or something, so I'm going to grab Diggersby while it's still there. I knew Mamoswine was still available at the time, and I was really looking at that, but I decided Diggersby was going to be better for the job I needed it to do, and it gives me spikes access, which is really nice, and is just a generally good wall breaker. You set up a Swords Dance, and you can quick attack on just about anything that isn't a ghost type, and if it is a ghost type, fine, this thing's going to smack it with an Earthquake, and if it's a ghost type that's off the ground, well, I've got other answers to that. So we can handle that with other things. Obviously, Diggersby at some point can't just do everything by itself, but as a sweeper, as a late game cleaner, or as a revenge killer, this thing can come in and put in the finest of work. And I've never used it before, but I figured it'd be a lot of fun to use. Now, of course, like I said, next up in my priority list was a water type. I need that bulky water to solidify. Wow, that was English. To solidify this core that was going pretty well so far. I was actually pretty happy, despite getting sniped a few times in this draft. I was pretty happy with the way things were shaping up. Team was looking absolutely terrifying. Nobody really wants to face it. Lots of U-turn and Volt Switch. Obviously, Diggersby, another U-turn mon, along with Infernape, along with my Thunderous. So I figured I've got the ability to gain the momentum that I need to gain to get into my walls and things like that. But let's try to draft those out of tier 3 before they get stolen from somebody else. And there was a bunch of picks between my rounds 3 and 4 picks, or 4 and 5 picks, excuse me. But Diggersby was holding down the fort for a little while until it came back around, and I decided I was going to pick up Vaporeon. Vaporeon is a very good mon. Water Absorb means that I'm just completely immune to water, so if you're going to try to smack me with some Scalds on my Infernape and my Diggersby, you're going to have another thing coming, and if you really want to try to predict things and go for Toxics, well, Vaporeon's going to Heal Bell, Mega Gardevoir's going to Heal Bell, so you're not going to be able to just burn things, you're not going to be able to Toxic Stall things. Vaporeon's got Wish, base 130 HP Wishes going past around, absolutely great for things like the Thunderous, which can't really switch into too many Stealth Rock layers. It's going to be amazing for just spamming Scald. It's got Ice Beam, Icy Wind for speed control, and then of course Toxic, Wish, Protect. It can get access to Acid Armor, Baton Pass. So this thing can have a lot of fun going in this league. And I've never used it, but I've recommended it to a lot of people. I personally think that Vaporeon Miltank is an underrated core that can really put in a ton of pressure on somebody to just break both of those down, because they're so hard to break. They're both good clerics. They both have reliable recovery. And you just, like, breaking one, fine, and then they get Wish passed from Vaporeon to the other, and it's just a pain. So I've used Miltank a lot recently, so I decided, let's not go with Miltank this time, but I decided I was going to finally pick up Vaporeon and see how it does without the Miltank support. But between Thunderous and Diggersby both being immune to electric, and then this thing being immune to water, and then of course I do have Thunderous and Infernape as grass type switch-ins, Vaporeon fits so well onto the team, and a base 110 special attack isn't bad either, so really nice to have this thing. I'm pretty excited for it this season. And of course, I wanted to round out that wall core. I wanted to get something that was going to be defensive, since Vaporeon is much more specially bulky, and be able to handle any of those physical threats. So I decided to pick up Doublade. Again, I was looking at Aegislash at the beginning. It got taken, so I said, you know what? You know what the next best thing is? The same exact moves, but Doublade. No guard, phenomenal. I can't miss my moves. That's what I need right now. I need something that isn't going to miss moves. It's going to be able to hit things really hard with Shadow Sneak, so more priority on my team. Swords Dance, this thing actually becomes a really offensive threat. Yes, knockoff is scary. I get that. And I get that my team does not have a phenomenal knockoff check at this point, so I am going to look into that. Obviously, Gardevoir can take it, but between the Psychic typing making it neutral, it's not ideal. Infernape doesn't want to take too many attacks, and certainly doesn't want to lose its item unless it's a Z user that particular week. So knockoff looking pretty scary, but otherwise, this thing can come in, it can put a lot of pressure on, and really help me out going forward. Now, this is where going into the next pick, I was like, I don't want to reuse too many mons from old leagues. I want to give new things a chance, and so far I've done pretty well. I've drafted Infernape before, but not recently and not much, and so I figured that's fine for me to give another shot to. And obviously regular versus Mega Gardevoir, you can argue, but I think Mega Gardevoir plays very differently than regular Gardevoir. Just on the Hyper Voice side of things, instead of Moonblast alone, is a pretty big change. So I thought that, yeah, I've been doing pretty well at getting new Pokemon. but I'm lacking in hazard removal. I would love to have sticky webs on this team. I would love to make because again, Vaporeon, not the fastest thing in the world. Diggersby with sticky webs, horrifying. I mean, that thing is base 78 speed, so it's not super slow, but then you get it behind sticky webs and everything else is slower than it, so I can click return instead of quick attack, and whoo boy, that thing's going to do some damage. So I was figuring, okay, let's try to figure out a defogger, let's try to figure out a Weber, and I drafted Ribombee again. I did it. I had it in the ICBA, which is still going on as of the time of recording this, and I'm technically into the semifinals and waiting on my matchup for that, but I drafted Ribombee again because it's a really good Sticky Webber, fastest Sticky Webber in the game, gave me something faster than the base 111, I believe is what Thundurus is, gave me something faster than that, and then it's just a very good fairy type. Gives me a knockoff switch in for the most part, especially if it's already lost its sash. Not lost it, but like it's broken, sash broken for whatever reason. Or if I'm using this thing for something else, it's just a good dark type resist and gives me access to Stab Moonblast, Bug Buzz, U-Turn again, Sticky Webs, Defog, Quiver Dancing. It can run Energy Ball. It can run so many things. Hidden powers for this thing are phenomenal once you get a Quiver Dance up. So I've loved it in the ICBA. I think it's a great Sticky Webber. Do I think it's the best Sticky Webber? Well, it's the best Sticky Webber that gets defog, because Masquerade's terrible. And that's the end of that. So, Shield Dust, great, because I can't flinch if you try to use Fake Out. You can't Scald Burn this thing. So, really nice ability in that case. And again, Aromatherapy, so another Cleric for this team to pair with the Mega Gardevoir option or the Vaporeon option, take some pressure off of that. So I think with the way this team is shaping up, this thing has the potential to be a lot more supportive, but it can obviously come in and sweep. But with Nasty Plot potential on Infernape, Nasty Plot potential on Thundurus, Swords Dance on Infernape, Swords Dance on my Diggersby, or Doublade, I've got real good sweeping options already for setup sweeping options. So Quiver Dance, obviously still a threat. Everyone's got to worry about it, but I think this thing has the potential to be really scary as a support mon. It sets up screens, it gets up sticky webs, it can have access to Trick, and so like there's some fun things you can do with Ribombee, and so I figure this thing can have some options to be used differently than it was used in the ICBA, which is why I thought, okay, despite my plan to go with nothing I've drafted before for the most part, Ribombee looks different on this team than it did in the ICBA. So, at this point, I don't have my team on the side here, but I've got Thundurus, I've got Infernape as tier 1s, I've got Diggersby as tier 2, Vaporeon, Doublade as tier 3, and then my Mega as Gardevoir, and now Ribombee, which was tier 4. So I actually still have a lot of free points left to play around with, and I was looking at tier 5s, and I was like, I'm going to want a spinner from tier 5, and I don't love that, but Claydol had gotten taken around this time, and I just didn't... I was like, oh, okay, Claydol's gone, so that was the best one for my team. I'm going to talk to my front office, try to figure something out for a spinner. And I'm not going to draft it right now. I'll wait until later to try to figure out that spinner. And at this point as well, my only Stealth Rocker is Infernape, which I didn't love so much, but I also try to resolve that a little bit later as well. So I was like, okay, if I look for a spinner Stealth Rocker from tier 5, that frees up me to continue to look for a tier 1 because I still have the points for it, and maybe even a tier 1 and another tier 2 if I pair it with another tier 4. So at this point, I've drafted Ribombee. I'm like, you know what? My team is shaping up well. I'm missing a grass type. I have Infernape, Vaporeon as my fire water, but I'm missing the grass type on that side. And I have my steel type, my fairy type, and I'm missing my dragon type. So those two things I was going to try to resolve, not all at once, but over the course of the next few picks. And so I wanted to finish out those two cores. And what I decided to start with was, why not pick up Serperior? Round 8 Serperior, it's still sitting there. Another incredible wall breaker, this one with better bulk. Subseed's certainly an option. Glare is amazing for speed control. Another mon over base 100 speed, so really fast. Preventing the opponent from defogging freely, because then I get an evasion boost. Preventing you from setting up sticky webs, because then I get a speed boost. I mean, this thing, Contrary is an amazing ability, and slap on a Scarf, slap on Leftovers, slap on whatever you want, spam Leaf Storm if you want to. Yeah, the first one may not be so powerful because its special attack is kind of meh, but you then just get +2 for free, and it forces so many switches because of its speed tier. Weakness, it's a grass type, so it's going to be weak to a whole bunch of things, But I do have answers for pretty much every grass-type weakness already, and I have switch-ins for pretty much anything that wants to attack this thing. Infernape and Thundurus resisting the bug-type U-turns that are going to be coming my way, as well as Doublade Quad resisting those. If you really want to use something like a Fire-type attack, well, you're going to have to slap that into a Vaporeon, and it's going to handle that just fine. So I really liked Serperior on this team, and it does actually get pretty decent coverage and some interesting moves like Knockoff, like Dragon Tail, like it gets access. I mean, the hidden powers are obviously super useful on it, so I really like. It's got a pretty small move pool, all things considered, but at the same time, it actually does have a couple of niches to fill. And then I could run physical with Coil and not Contrary 1 week just to throw somebody off the trail. And so I thought Serperior fit super well. But once I grabbed Serperior, my front office was screaming at me that you have enough wall breakers, you have enough answers for late game cleaning, which is admittedly what I'm really good at doing. You need something to pivot. You need something to pivot into to handle Pokemon that are going to hit these Pokemon hard. People are going to run Scarfers against you. You know they're coming. Your team is fast. People are going to try to run Sticky Webs, although with Serperior stopping Sticky Webs and Thundurus not caring about it, Sticky Webs aren't as scary against my team, but you know they're going to try to run it. So pick something that's going to handle those Pokemon, handle things that are going to switch into the Serperior, and be able to threaten just about everything. The Kyurem Blacks of the world, the really strong poison types of the world. And so I decided what I was going to do was pick up Goodra. Nope, that's Drapion. I picked up Drapion first. Did I pick up Drapion first? Apparently I picked up Drapion first. That's where this is in the order. So I grabbed, I was hyping up Goodra. Spoilers, I pick up Goodra after this. But I do pick up Drapion here to soak up Toxic Spikes, to give me Toxic Spikes, give me another thing to switch into Knockoffs, which I thought was a really useful thing to have. Give me a thing to use Knockoffs. Yeah, it's weak to ground, but Serperior doesn't care about ground types. And Drapion loves handling just about anything that is a poison, dark, ghost, grass. Like, honestly, it just handles a bunch of types. It can switch in. It gets, Black Sludge is a really good item for it. I wish it got Sucker Punch, but we have to live with the fact that this thing is just really scary with Earthquake, with Stab Poison Jab or Cross Poison, Stab knockoffs coming off this thing, Toxic Spike, soaking up Toxic Spikes, Taunt, Whirlwind. This thing gets so many interesting moves and movesets that I really liked Drapion. I thought it was a good tier 4 value. It is a secondary tier 4 so that I could pick up the extra tier 2, which is then Goodra. So I did spoil that a little bit. I didn't prepare or practice this speech at all, but Goodra is the next thing I'm going to grab, and Goodra's a really good mon, in my opinion, to fit my team. Switching into things that want to hit hard, or Scarfed mons that really can't break it down. Stupidly high special defense, slap on an Assault Vest. This thing literally was made for an Assault Vest. It can be run physical or special. It gets good moves on both sides of the spectrum between Fire Blast and Dragon Pulse versus Earthquake and Outrage. It gets Dragon Tail. It gets tons of good moves that it can use supportively or offensively. Super bulky to be able to switch and pivot. Sap Sipper for grass type attacks that are going to try to aim at Vaporeon, so another immunity, which I really like. Or Gooey, which is a phenomenal ability for any physical attacker trying to hit it, slow them down, then be able to hit them first on the following turn. And obviously this thing is just a very scary mon in terms of just kind of, if you can't break it, or if I take down your breakers for it, it becomes one of the hardest things to stop. And I've got Vaporeon and Gardevoir that can Wish Pass back into this thing and make it healthy again. So, Wish, Baton Pass with Vaporeon, slow Baton Pass into Goodra to make sure that it gets in safely and just gets its health back. And now you have to break it down again, losing whatever I've taken down in the interim. So, Goodra, phenomenal mon. I've never used it in League format before, but I've seen people use it super well, and I'm really excited for it because of the variety of movesets that it gets, and you guys know how much I love me some variety in terms of moves and options. And so now we're getting into the later portion of the draft. There's not a lot of interesting things left on the table. And so I'm going to pick up with my last pick, Armaldo. I still needed that rocker. I still needed that spinner. This thing gives me access to some interesting rock type stab, which I didn't have before. So Stone Edges coming off of this thing are really strong. Swift Swim, I don't know if I'm ever going to use it. My team's not really a rain team, but like, hey, it's there, it exists, so it's, something people might have to watch out for 1 week. I have no intention of really making a team around that. I'm really bad with weather, but like, hey, it exists. And this thing can just kind of come in, do what it needs to do, which is maybe get rocks up. It is my alternative Z user to Infernape, and Z Stone Edge coming off of this thing is not anything to scoff at. It's pretty strong. Silly little thing. New tier 5 to me. I had never considered even using it before. I argue that it is definitely a worse tier 5 rapid spinner stealth rocker than Claydol is, but that thing got scooped up a little bit earlier. So Armaldo's here. Last round picks are always interesting, and so that's what we decided to go with on the New York Empoleon. So this is the New York Empoleon this season. The PCL Season 2 is looking at a fierce New York Empoleon team of Pokemon that I am super excited to use. Super fun teams, lots of spammable moves, lots of options for Volt Turn, lots of hazards. I think I have every single entry hazard covered on this team somewhere. So really interesting offensive team. Not my typical style, but something that I think will work really well since I do have the defensive pivots and immunities. I mean, if you look around this team, every single Pokemon just about has an immunity to something with one of its abilities or just by nature of its typing. So super excited for that. You know, if we're looking at, we can go around the board. So Thundurus, Volt Absorb, Vaporeon, Water Absorb, Fairy typing on Gardevoir is immune to Dragon. Serperior I don't actually think has any immunities, but hey, I'm okay with it being Serperior. Diggersby is immune to both Ghost and Electric. We've got Goodra, which has Sap Sipper for grass types. Infernape I also don't think has any immunities, but hey, I'm totally cool with that. Infernape's really, really good. Drapeon's immune to Prankster. Armaldo it's an Armaldo, whatever. And then we have the Ribombee, which is immune to Dragon types as well as secondary effects. And Doublade, which, spoilers, I actually will be dropping Doublade for even just week 1. We got one free change during the draft, and I decided to swap Doublade for Metagross. Fun fact, they actually have exactly the same weaknesses, which is really interesting. Doublade does have a couple of more resistances, but I wanted an extra stealth rocker that wasn't Infernape or Armaldo. I didn't want to have to rely on them every week, so I do pick up Metagross in that slot. So another good stealth rocker, more priority. It has access to pretty much the same moves, but also agility. It's a little bit more offensive pressure that I can put onto a team. I lose the Ghost type. It is what it is. Metagross still gives me that Steel type option, so I'm totally fine with it. And again, same weaknesses, but not as much looking incentivized for my opponents to bring knockoff every week since I don't have the Doublade. So I thought this was going to be a fun team. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if it's the best team I've ever drafted. I don't know how it's going to perform personally, because it's a lot of things that I'm not necessarily as familiar with, but it's a playstyle I think I can get very comfortable with and will have a lot of fun with. There's a lot of very offensive mons people have to prepare for, and the mons that I have can pretty much all take at least one hit and dish back massive damage, and I've got so much priority around this team between the new Metagross, between Infernape, Diggersby, you know, we've got priority everywhere, so we've got lots of options on this team, and I think it's going to be super duper fun this season. So if you're excited for the New York Empoleon to get started in the PCL, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I don't usually say that, but 2019 is a new year and we're going to try something new. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so that I can show you guys all of my Pokemon Draft League content. And don't forget that the ICBA is not over yet. So we are going to be finishing that in early 2019. So we are in the semifinals. So if you want to watch semis and possibly finals, let me give me that subscription so that you guys get notified when I do post those videos. And what's the most exciting Pokemon you're excited for? Wow, that's not English. What's the most exciting Pokemon to you this season on the New York Empoleon? I personally think that I'm going to have the most fun with Diggersby. It's a mon that I've certainly struggled with in the past, struggled facing in the past, but I'm not going to lie, I think Drapeon's super fun. I think Serperior is going to be super fun. I'm really excited to use Vaporeon and Thundurus. So lots of mons that I'm really excited for on this season of the New York Empoleon. So the PCL Season 2 is getting started. We are not wasting any time. Battles start this week and will be uploaded as soon as next week. So don't delay. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like the videos, and hang out and let me know what you're excited for the New York Empoleon. We are going to be facing off against Mike in his terrifying draft, so make sure you check out his draft analysis in week 1, and hope you guys are well. Hope 2019 is great. Hope you have a wonderful new year, and I will see you guys next week with this battle, and possibly whenever the ICBA battle takes place, I will do that as well. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you all later. Take care, everybody.